Hey everybody, welcome back to Living Traditions Homestead. We're out in the workshop today. I don't know if you can see my breath or not, but it's pretty chilly out here today. But I wanted to take some time today to show you the full process from going from quail in a cage to quail on your dinner plate. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Now, we've been getting a ton of requests from you guys about doing a processing video and a cooking video with the quail. You want to know what's so great about the quail? Why do I want to spend so much time raising them? And that's what I want to show you today because they are delicious. And because of their fast turnaround, they are just a great animal to have on the homestead. Now, if you're not interested in the processing part of this video and you just want to see the recipe part, feel free to jump ahead in the video if you don't want to watch the processing part. All right, now for those of you who are left that want to see how to process quail, I'm going to show you exactly how I do it. We're actually going to skin the quail today, and I'm going to take you step by step through the entire process. Now in our family, when we're making a meal with quail, we always do 2 quail per person. So since there's 3 of us in our house, today I'm going to be processing 6 quail. Let me grab one out of here and I'm going to show you basically how we're going to start the process. Now, we have a lot of extra males right now, and that's what I'm going to be processing today. The very first part I'm not going to show you in depth because of guidelines on YouTube, not being able to show the actual killing part, but I will explain to you exactly what I'm going to be doing. There's really 2 ways to dispatch or kill a quail. You can either take a very sharp scissors, basically hold the quail kind of down at an angle, take a very sharp scissors, and just really quickly cut their head off. That will allow them to bleed out very quickly. It's a very humane process because honestly it happens so quickly that they don't even really know what happened. The other way to do it, which is just as fast, it may sound a little more gruesome, but let me tell you, I think it's actually more humane, is to just hold the quail, grab their head, and just pull and just take it right off. It comes off in one swift motion, and there's no concern about the scissors not doing its job correctly, and I really think that that is the most humane way. All right, so like I said, because of restrictions on YouTube, I'm not able to show you that part, but you guys, it's just as simple as what I just explained. So I'm going to grab 6 quail, I'm going to take them outside, and I'm going to dispatch them, and then I'll meet you back in the kitchen where I'm going to show you exactly how we skin them, gut them, and get them ready for eating. We're back in the house. I've dispatched all 6 of the quail, and we're ready to start cleaning them and gutting them. I'm going to take the first one out here so I can show you guys what we're working with. So again, the head has already been removed. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to actually just cut the legs off the quail. Now with quail, because they're so small, you can either use just a regular scissors or you can use like a poultry shears. Most of the time, I just like to use the regular scissors. With quail, they're plenty strong. So we're going to just go where the joint is here, and we're just going to cut the feet off the quail. I've got a garbage can down here. Now I'll tell you, normally I do this all outside. I don't do this in the kitchen, but because it's so cold out today, we're going to do it inside. Now that we have the feet off, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take part of the wing off. When you look at the wing, there's 2 joints. There's this one here closest to the end, and then there's a second joint here. You can choose either one of those to cut off. I cut way up here because there's really no meat between those 2 joints anyway. I used to leave that on, but honestly, it just doesn't add anything when you get ready to cook them. So we're going to cut that part of the wing off on both sides. And now we're left with basically the body of the quail. If you feel, you can feel like the breastbone here. So we're going to pluck off just a few of the feathers so we can see the skin on the breastbone. And then we're going to take our scissors and we're just going to nip through the skin a little bit so that we can start to tear the skin. Now the skin on a quail is very thin, and you can basically just start peeling it off with your fingers. And you start to see the meat underneath. So from here, what we're going to do is we're just going to work that skin off with all of the feathers still intact. We're going to pull the wing out. And we're going to work that off the neck and then down the back, and it's going to come off right over those back legs. Now usually there will be a little bit of the skin and feathers that sticks to the back. That's normal. The skin is just a little bit different there, so we'll just pluck those feathers off. Sometimes the skin comes off as well, sometimes a little of the skin stays on. Doesn't really matter. And then we're left with just the tail. What I like to do is just cut that straight off. And now we're left with just the body of our bird. So we'll just toss this all in the garbage. Now that we've got it completely skinned, we'll move on to the gutting part. So the first thing that I like to do is I take the neck off. There's really no meat on the neck. So we'll take that off. Now gutting a quail is a little different than gutting a chicken. With a chicken you would cut kind of in here, and then you would reach inside with your hand and you'd pull all the guts out. Quail are so little, you don't do it that way. We're actually going to do, I think the real name for it is called like spatchcocking it, which basically means we're going to cut the backbone out. So we're going to find the vent, we're going to take our scissors and we're going to cut right along the side of the backbone. And we're going to do that on both sides so that the backbone comes completely out. And now we're left with the bird open inside, and we're basically just going to take our fingers and we're just going to scoop out all of the insides, and they come out pretty nice and clean. We'll just toss those right into the garbage, and we're left with a nice clean bird inside. No feces, no anything on the meat. The only thing we still have to get out of there is the lungs, which usually stick to the rib cage up here. So we'll take those out. And then I'm just going to take it over to the sink. We're going to rinse it off. And then we are completely done with our first quail. So once you've got it rinsed, you can see that it is just very nice and clean inside. We've got our whole little quail here. Now for the recipe that we're making today, I want these in pieces. Depending on what you're going to be doing, you can either leave them whole, just like this, or you can cut this in half just the way it is. But for the recipe I'm going to be making today, what I'm going to do is, first of all, we're going to split the breast. So I'm going to use our poultry shears for that. Alright, so we've got our two halves, and then we're also going to just cut. Now the back legs really aren't connected, so we're just going to cut the legs off. So we're left now with, we've got our two breasts, and we've got our two back legs. Now a lot of people, when they process quail, don't even save the back legs, they just save the breast meat. But in my opinion, there's a lot of good meat on those back legs, especially on these jumbo Coturnix quail. So to me, that is a big waste to not use that. So we're going to be using the entire thing in our recipe today. So I'm going to set those off to the side. I'm going to go ahead and clean those last 5. And then we're going to put this in the fridge and let it rest for at least a couple hours before we start dinner's recipe. All of our quail are processed. I'm going to get these covered and put these in the refrigerator. Now I do get a lot of questions from people asking if you need to like soak these in salt water or anything like that to take the gaminess out of the meat. You guys, with home raised quail like this, there really is no gaminess in the meat. Most of the time when you're going to have gaminess in the meat, it's because you have hunted that meat, and typically when you hunt, when you shoot something, it doesn't bleed out all the way. By doing these, you know, we process them ourselves. We made sure they bled out well, so this meat will not be gamey one bit. So I'm going to get these covered, put in the fridge, and then in a few hours, when it's time for supper, we'll start on the recipe. Well, it is finally dinner time, so it is time to start cooking. The quail have been in the refrigerator for the last few hours resting, and we're going to get going. Now today what we're going to be making is we're going to be making gravy smothered quail with mashed potatoes and green beans. And you guys, this is one of my favorite meals, especially on a cold winter night, because it is just one of those like comfort foods. All right, so we're going to make this. It's going to be very simple. We're going to use a ½ cup of flour. I like to actually use like a rounded ½ cup, so pretty big ½ cup. We're just going to add about a teaspoon of black pepper and a teaspoon of salt. We use pink Himalayan salt, but you can use any kind of salt that you have at home. We're going to whisk that all together. Now back on the stove, we have some home rendered lard heating up in a cast iron skillet. You can use vegetable oil or whatever kind of oil you prefer on your homestead. We like home rendered lard. What we're going to do is we're going to actually put all of this quail into this flour mixture. And we're just going to toss it to coat it all lightly with the flour. And then we're going to take it back out and we're going to go over to the stove and we're going to brown this on each side just for a minute or two. You're not trying to get it done at this point. You're just trying to get the quail browned on every side. We're just going to put all of our quail pieces in a pan. Hopefully you have a big enough pan for this. This is one of the few times that I use this really big cast iron pan that we have. If not, you'll just need to make less quail. It's going to be a tight fit in this pan, but we're going to make it. Alright, so I'm going to let these brown for about a minute on this side, then we'll flip them all over and we'll brown them for a minute or a minute and a half on the other side. Now that that has browned on both sides, we're going to take those pieces back off and we're just going to put them on a tray with some paper towels. Alright, now that all of our quail is out, we still have our lard or our oil in the pan, and we have our leftover flour from earlier. We're going to use that same flour with the salt and pepper in it. We're going to add that to our oil. And we're going to whisk that all together. So we're going to do this for about 2 minutes or so, or until the flour gets kind of a nice brown color. Alright, it's been a couple minutes and our flour is starting to brown in the pan, so it's time to add some water. We're going to add 2 cups of water to this mixture, and we're going to whisk that in as we stir it. And we're going to keep whisking until that starts to thicken up in the pan. Alright, now that that has just started to thicken up, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add our quail back in. We want to work quickly because you can't keep stirring at this point. So we get all of our quail put back in. And this is where the quail is actually going to finish cooking. Alright, all of the quail is back in the pan. Now we're going to cover the pan. I don't have an actual cover for this pan, but our pizza pan actually fits this fine. So I'm going to just put that on top. We're going to turn this down to low. We're going to let these simmer in the pan here for about 20 minutes or until they hit 165 degrees. You can stir them a little bit along the way if you'd like. I usually don't. I usually just let them simmer for 20 minutes. Alright, you guys, dinner is ready. Wait until you see how awesome this quail looks. Look at that. I wish you guys could smell through the TV or through the computer how awesome that this smells. Like I said, this is my favorite way to eat quail because it just turns out so tender and just so nice and moist. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a few pieces and put them here on my plate. Also got some mashed potatoes, which goes perfect with this, with the gravy. And then some homegrown, home-canned green beans as well. Now that is an awesome dinner for a cold winter night. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and give this quail a try so you guys can see it. Now I'll be honest, right now it is so hot I need to use a knife to cut it. But normally I let it cool off enough, I just pick this up and I eat it with my fingers. And then I just use a napkin and make a big mess. But it's more delicious that way, I think. Alright, let me cut this. Now for you who haven't had quail before, you can see quail is almost all dark meat. And it is delicious. That is perfect. Super tender. Just a great flavor. The gravy is perfect. You guys, this is the absolute best way, in my opinion, to make quail. I hope you give this a try. Like I said, if you don't raise quail, you can always try this recipe with chicken. But if you can find a local farmer who raises quail and will either sell you some already processed or you don't mind processing it, go ahead and give this a try. Hey, if you're enjoying our channel and you like this type of content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button before you leave. Don't forget that the best way that you can help us, as always, is just to share our videos on all of your social media so that other like-minded people can enjoy our content as well. Until next time, thank you so much for stopping by our homestead. Take care, and God bless.